Hi crafty friends, this is card number 32 in Full Deck Challenge 3. This week my constant and carryover item are going to be the same. I'm going to carry over these half stamps that I used in my previous one, which will also be my constant, which is the postage stamp. I'm going to use some neutral papers for my background, some book pages, some sheet music. I'm planning to make my bird, which is this week's prompt, quite bright. So I think I need a muted down background so my bird can stand out. I'm going to tear some strips of these book pages and get them ready for my mini collage background. Remembering, if you're joining in the Full Deck Challenge and you don't have a deck of playing cards, you don't have to use cards. It's not mandatory. You can just make it like an ATC. You can use a piece of cardboard or a piece of cardstock. You could even do the work in an altered book. My collage strips are ready. I'm going to stick those down. I'm going to stick them down with Mod Podge. And a question I get asked quite often is, does the Mod Podge stick well on the face of the card? Now, I did explain in the very first video of this series about the different finishes of playing cards. But I will mention again here quickly in case you missed that video, or if you're new around here. So if you purchase really inexpensive playing cards, like the ones you would get from a dollar shop, the card stock that they're made from is pretty thin, and the cards are normally really shiny. They have a very glossy finish. For those, I would recommend sanding the face of the card slightly first, just to get some of that gloss off and to create some tooth for the adhesive to adhere to. The cards that I'm using have got what is called a linen finish. These cards are not that much more expensive. I might have paid $4 for the deck, where the inexpensive ones are maybe $2.50. But what I like about these is the surface is not super shiny and it has a slight texture, so things stick to it really well. I use Mod Podge and sometimes clear craft glue, and I've never had an issue with anything peeling off or coming unstuck. But I have to say it is all trial and error. When I started the Full Deck Challenge a few years ago, I didn't know the differences of playing cards, but through the years I've tried different ones, different glues, and I have found what works for me. I try to give you as much information as I can so you can have the best experience during the Full Deck Challenge. For my bird, I'm going to make it quite cartoony, for lack of a better word. I'm going to use my 1.5 inch round punch, and that big circle is going to be the body of my bird. I'm just using some scraps that I have lying around for this. I have this beautiful purple, which will be the main part of my bird. And then this cardstock, I'm punching a smaller circle. It's got a scalloped edge, and that's going to be the wing. So I'm cutting that in half. And then those half stamps that I'm using are going to be the tail feathers. So I've used a purple scrap cardstock and the red, which matches the feathers from the tail. I'm going to stick the elements of my bird together. I'm going to stick the wing onto the body and then the tail feathers. The prompt for next week is song lyrics. I feel that the background is a little too busy, so I'm going to tone that down using a little bit of gesso. I have the green stamp in the tail feathers, and I want to add a little bit of green into the background as I feel I need to extend that color somehow. I'm going to use this green ink. It's the sort of closest color I have to the stamp I'm using, and I'm just going to sprinkle a few droplets onto the card background. I think paint splatter is a great way to extend color on your projects. Once that's nice and dry, I'm going to finish off my bird. I'm going to create a little beak. I've got a piece of orange scrap paper and I'm going to cut a longish triangle, just really simply, and that's going to be the beak. And then I wasn't quite sure what kind of eye to do on my bird, so I did a bit of a practice run on some scrap paper. I wasn't sure if I should just do a little dot or put some white background. I wasn't sure what would look cute. I know, a lot of decisions just for an eye. And then I thought maybe use some white, but I used this marker, which is not a great idea because it was just too wet. It left a big dollop of the paint, which took forever to dry. Then I thought, well, what am I doing this for? So I just used my little hole punch and punched a round piece of white paper, which is much easier than trying to use paint or markers. Put the pupil on, and there we go. We have a bird's eye. Not sure why I didn't think of this first. I'm going to add some more detail with my black fine liner pen. I'm going to make the pupil bigger. I'm going to go around the eye to make it more defined. And then I decided to go around everything with the marker, just to create definition and to give it more of that cartoony feel. I don't know if cartoon is the right word, but I think you know what I mean. I think these birds are pretty cute to make, just like sort of in a mass make. And then you can add them to your journal pages or your art journaling or even a birthday card for a friend, or pop a few in an envelope and send them to a crafty friend as happy mail. They're super fun to make, pretty quick, and you can use up all those scraps. To put it onto the background, I feel it needs something behind it, otherwise it feels a little too flat. So I'm going to add some cheesecloth. That is sort of my go-to. It's between that and that crumpled up thread that I use often. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to stick that down with some clear craft glue. I'm not going to give my bird any feet, but I feel it needs something on its head. I call it a kokoriku on the top of its head. So I tried a little bit of scrumpled up thread. That didn't look great. That looked just like a mess. So I decided to do it another way. But first, I will stick the bird down. And I also want to add a sentiment. Using my usual sentiment stickers, the black with the white print, I'm going to add something at the bottom. I tried a small kokoriku, but that didn't look good. I need to make a bigger one. And the way I'm going to do that is using a brush tip marker. I'm going to press the nib at an angle onto a piece of paper. I'm going to make multiple marks. I think that'll look good. I'm just going to dry that and then I'm going to cut it out. I'm also going to use a fine liner pen to go around it to match the style of the bird. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to stick that down. You can see that the black of the kokoriku that I'm going to add to the bird balances out with the black text that I've put at the bottom. I'm also going to edge the card to finish it off with my black watercolor pencil. This was a super fun card to make. I really hope you enjoyed it and were inspired to create your own and maybe even join in my full deck challenge if you haven't already. Let me show you a close-up of this week's card. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Thanks again for watching. Happy creating, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.